One of the reasons I'm such a fan of the Ultimate Spider-Man comics is that they streamlined some of the more complicated aspects of the original continuity. One of the best examples of this is the Clone Saga. Where the original spanned years across spin-offs, one-shots, and ancillary comics, Ultimate Spider-Man's adaptation was an epic but straightforward 9-issue series. A couple of things you need to know before we dive in. First, on this world, Carnage was a symbiote inadvertently created by Dr. Curt Connors in a botched attempt to help Peter. Second, Carnage went on to kill Gwen Stacy, one of Peter's closest friends. And lastly, Peter recently broke up with Mary Jane after realizing his superhero life would always endanger her. Instead, he's been dating someone who can fend for herself, Kitty Pryde of the X-Men. That's where this story picks up. During his morning bowl of Fruit Loops, Peter gets a call from an upset Kitty. Recently, Peter was dealing with some difficult things, and it wasn't her that helped him through it, but Peter's ex-girlfriend and current best friend, MJ. Why did Peter go to MJ and not his girlfriend for help? He defends himself. MJ is his only friend, one of the only people who knows he's Spider-Man, and they have a long history together. "You're in love with her," Kitty accuses him. Peter's only response is a wide-eyed silence, and when Aunt May arrives, he hangs up, leaving Kitty to cry in her pillow. After school, MJ cheers Peter up by taking him to his favorite place. They enjoy cheeseburgers and fries, but things get awkward when Mark Raxton walks by, someone MJ went out with after Peter. MJ breaks the uncomfortable silence by admitting they only went out once and he ended things after MJ just talked about Peter all night. They're interrupted when a villain shows up to wreak havoc. As usual, Spider-Man is somehow blamed for the mess. "Oh my God!" a bystander shouts. "Spider-Man is trashing the mall! He's gone crazy!" And as usual, Spider-Man responds to the villain's antics with a quip. Okay, I was upset that Chick-fil-A moved to another location too, but that is no reason to throw up. But he stops when the villain turns toward him and introduces himself. "I am so much smarter than you, it's not even funny. I'm the Scorpion," the villain shouts. Then babbles about how he's not falling for it, shouting, "Don't try and psych me out with this trick. It's supposed to be right here." Once the cops show up, Scorpion gets violent. As they fight, he continues to babble. "Who are you, masked mystery man? Unveil yourself to the crowd. He said that. That's what he said." Peter finally subdues the villain and is shocked by what he finds under the Scorpion's mask. He sees Peter Parker, a face that looks exactly like his own. Meanwhile, MJ manages to escape the chaos, but when she gets home, someone is waiting for her. They grab her, and it doesn't take long for MJ's mom to realize her daughter has gone missing. At the mall, unsure what else to do, Peter grabs the unconscious lookalike and brings him to one of the smartest people he knows, Reed Richards. He trusts the Fantastic Four, especially his close friend, Johnny Storm. The frantic Spider-Man begs them to run some tests on the Scorpion and asks them to keep it from the authorities, specifically Nick Fury. Not a fan of Fury himself, Richard agrees and after some tests, reports that the Scorpion is a 94.2% match with Peter Parker, which is strange. Usually it's either a match or it's not, but here, there's an almost 6% discrepancy. Then, Spider-Man removes his mask to show why he's so freaked out. He is Peter Parker. Richards calls Nick Fury. Knowing his penchant for classified superhero-related schemes, Reed asks if the government is performing any clone-related experiments. Fury denies it. "He's lying," Peter says. "He's a liar." "Actually," Reed offers, "this time he's not. I have virtual sensors reading body temperature and pulse rate fluctuations, and it didn't budge." Nick Fury did not create this Peter Parker clone. Realizing the time, Peter rushes home to Aunt May. Already freaked out by his clone with a tail, things get even worse when he learns from May that MJ is missing. He rushes off to look for her at an abandoned warehouse, a secret place they used to sneak away to, a place she now goes to be alone sometimes. "Please be here," Peter begs silently. But instead of MJ, he finds someone else, a girl in a spider outfit, seemingly modeled after his own. "Where is MJ?" Peter tearfully demands. Mary Jane Watson, the girl offers. I'm not her if that's what you think. That would be so creepy, as opposed to this thing here which isn't creepy at all. The impatient Peter attacks, while she demands that he stop and listen to her. When he refuses, the girl fires web from her index finger and knocks him out. I shouldn't have come here, she says to an unconscious Peter. This was my fault. I just had to see this for real. I'll get them back for you, Peter. I'll do it for all of us. We didn't deserve this. Then the mystery girl swings off. When Peter wakes, he does the same, frantically shouting for MJ. He races to his old home, wondering if maybe she's there. But instead of MJ, he finds a girl who should be dead. Gwen? Peter asks, with the look of someone who's seen a ghost. Elsewhere, MJ wakes up in a vat. She shouts for help, then spots her captor in the shadows. Peter? She asks. Peter, what are you doing? I know how to protect you, he answers. I should have thought of this years ago. When she only replies with more terrified screams, he adds, Shh, it's okay. I'm going to make sure no one hurts you ever again. Then she gets a look at his face, and even outside the abandoned Oscorp lab, her scream of terror can be heard. At his old home, Peter questions a confused Gwen. Dude, what's going on here? Gwen asks, wondering when he and Aunt May moved. Gwen, Peter answers, you're dead. I'm not, Gwen insists. At that, Peter is sure that he's lost his mind. He must be seeing things. Gwen reassures him. She's here. She's alive. Gwen, you died, Peter repeats. I didn't, she insists again. Where did you come from? He asks. At the Oscorp lab, the man who looks like Peter tells MJ his plan. Instead of worrying for her safety all the time, he's going to give her powers and make sure she can defend herself. I'm going to make you just like me, the scarred and deformed Peter promises. At the Baxter building, the Fantastic Four wake up the Scorpion Peter and try to get answers. Am I back in the zoo? He asks. How did I get here? He snaps, and besides his cryptic mention of the zoo, they don't get any more information from him. Then, Sue and Reed decide that, despite Peter asking them not to, this is too big to keep from Nick Fury. So they call and ask him to come see what they're dealing with. Meanwhile, Gwen tells Peter what she remembers. She woke up in a hospital. She remembers bits and pieces. An unconscious doctor, cops firing at her, and swinging through the city. How did you get out? Peter asks. How did you get here? I don't remember, Gwen answers. Peter asks again, but she is just as surprised as him at the blanks in her memories. You don't remember how you got here? Peter asks. Suddenly realizing Peter's earlier babbling might not be entirely wrong, she asks, I was dead? He swears that she was, then comforts her. Suddenly, Aunt May arrives. She screams at the sight of an alive Gwen and runs off. Oh man, Gwen says. I was dead. They chase May back home and try to give her some answers. Peter finally reveals to her that he is Spider-Man, and Gwen was killed by a monster who was looking for him. But just now he discovered that she's not dead. She asks him to prove he's Spider-Man, and he does. Angry at his deceit and all the trouble it's brought into their lives, May tells him to leave. You're not my son, she shouts. I gave up my entire adult life to take care of you, even though you're not my son, and you've done nothing but lie to me. Sobbing, she adds, take your ghosts and your lies and get out. Then another ghost arrives at their doorstep. Richard Parker, Peter's father. You're alive? Peter asks. At the Baxter building, Reed tells Fury everything. Someone cloned Peter and seemingly tried to enhance him. So Fury calls HQ and asks them to ready their battalion of Spider Slayers. Meanwhile, Richard hugs his son, while Aunt May continues shouting for them to take their Peter drama and leave. But Peter wants answers. Aunt May, he asks, did you know my dad was alive? She admits she did, but only kept it from Peter to protect him. Richard turns his attention to Gwen, asking how she feels. As though he knows what she's been through, May shouts for them to leave, but he continues to ignore his sister-in-law, deciding that Peter deserves answers. So he grabs some cola and pizza from the fridge so they can have a family sit-down. At the Oscorp lab, the disfigured Peter prepares to transform MJ until he's stopped by another Peter. This one has 6 arms and wears a black suit. At the Parker family reunion, Richard tells his story. When Peter was a child, Richard invented a suit meant to cure ailments like cancer. But his invention went awry, and he accidentally created the symbiote, which became known as Venom. It was a failure, but Richard's boss, Bolivar Trask, was pleased with the results and wanted to develop the suit into a biological weapon. With or without Richard's help, Trask was going to pursue the weapon, so Richard and his partner, Eddie Brock Sr., agreed to help. That way, they'd at least get to control it and own a piece of it. But at the last minute, as they boarded a flight for Chicago to sign the contract, Richard rediscovered his principles. He realized that he couldn't be a part of it. His wife Mary disagreed and tried to talk him out of his idealism, but Richard refused. So Mary got on board with the Brocks. "I'd love to tell you that the last words your mother said to me were, 'I love you,'" Richard says to Peter. "But they weren't. I'm pretty sure we would have gotten divorced had the plane not crashed. I loved your mom. I still love your mom. But it wasn't going well." "Dad," Peter responds, "how is Gwen alive? We saw her dead, now she's alive. Is she alive because of you? Is that why you're here?" "Yes, actually," Richard answers. Smart boy. At the Oscorp lab, the 6-armed Peter tries talking down his counterpart. "I know you're confused, I totally get it, I do. But this isn't happening. This isn't why we were created." The disfigured Peter gains the upper hand and incapacitates the other, then reassures MJ, "It's okay, sweetie. It's okay." Meanwhile, Richard continues his story. The plane log had him on board, so legally he was assumed dead. But rather than reinsert himself into Peter's life, he thought the boy was in better hands with Aunt May and Uncle Ben. One day, he was approached by the CIA with an intriguing offer. The agent told him about a man named Nick Fury. He wants to put together a team of super soldiers, Captain Americas, and he wants to police the world, and we don't like or trust him, the agent explained. Then he made the offer. Richard stays invisible to the world while they provide him funding to continue his research. Research they hope will cure cancer as originally intended, but also create genetic weapons to be used in case Nick Fury ever steps over the line. He also shared that the plane crash which killed his wife was no accident. It was arranged by Trask to keep their research secret, to be used for his own nefarious ends. Richard accepted the offer, and one day, while working in the underground lab, the CIA brought him video footage of Spider-Man fighting Richard's failed invention, the symbiote. "He's your kid," the agent told him, "and Fury's already gotten to him." So Richard paid May a visit. She screamed at the sight of the ghost and told him to go to hell. Peter is the first Parker in history with a chance to grow up and have a normal, happy life. She wasn't going to let this man who disappeared for years suddenly reinsert himself into the boy's life. Then the agent gave Richard an update. They confiscated the work of Dr. Kurt Connors, who made advancements off Richard's earlier research, creating Carnage. "And I bet," the agent said, "with what you already have, we've got something really special." Growing impatient at the lengthy backstory, Peter demands, "How is Gwen alive?" "I hate this," Richard answers. "You were never supposed to see her. Please remember that. You would have never known she existed. This wasn't about you. It was a natural progression of the work we were already doing. The advancement in stem cell research combined with Connor's advanced..." They're interrupted by the arrival of some authorities. "You are surrounded," Nick Fury announces himself, and backed by his army of spider slayers, he asks them to calmly step outside. Gwen panics at the sight of the army, and the panic triggers something. She transforms, and suddenly takes the form of Carnage. At the sight of the monster, Aunt May clutches her chest and collapses. And at Oscorp, Mary Jane wakes up. "Congratulations, MJ," the scarred Peter says. "It's an all-new you." And we'll leave it there for now. Make sure you're subscribed and have that bell icon checked because part 2 is just a few days away. In the meantime, if you're looking for more Spider-Man content, check out the One Take podcast. We just did an episode checking in on current Spider-Man continuity, and we're going to continue to keep tabs on the old webhead. With that, thank you for watching, and see you on the next One Take.